This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here are your hosts, Ryan Alford and Chris Hansen.
Hello, and welcome to Vibe Science. We're always taking you to your highest vibe. It's mind, body, energy. We know these things. And look, we're your navigators, your guides. Chris Hansen and I are here to guide you and empower you to your highest vibe as we, decode life, which leads us to our guest today. It's all about decoding things. We got the SelfDecode.com guy. We got Mr. Biohacker. We got Joe Cohen. What's up, Joe?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, man. Anybody that's Mr. Biohacker gets our attention.
Okay. Why is that?
Oh, well, Chris and I have been quasi biohackers, for 10 years, exploring. I don't know if we're official biohackers. I don't know if you have to wear a certain coat or have a license to biohack, but I don't know if we've gone quite that far. But
I think you just have to be slightly a little more weird.
Yes.
I like that.
I like it. That's why all the biohackers are in Austin, right? It's getting a little weird. Isn't that their tagline? Exactly. Getting weird in Austin. What's up, Joe? Where's home?
In a transitionary period where I've just been traveling a lot and trying to figure out my next spot, which I think is going to be Miami. Pretty sure. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I think that's becoming the mecca of health, wellness, and biohacking and crypto and everything else. Seems to be the place to be.
Yeah, it seems like it.
But hey,
that's why
I go visit Chris as often as I can, and every time I'm there, I'm like, okay, I wasn't married before a kid. I'm in South Carolina. Greenville, South Carolina is kind of the new age South capital. It's a booming little. It's on every top list. We got a crane on every corner. It's one of the fastest growing small cities in America.
Oh, interesting.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Beautiful town.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's cool. Got a river and a waterfall that runs right through downtown, right outside of our studio, our office here. And it's a great town. A little, maybe less energetic than Miami, but it's got its own vibe going on.
Yeah, no, it seems cool.
So, Joe, let's set the table. Who is Joe Cohen?
Oh, that's a great question.
Still finding it out like we all are, right?
Yeah, I mean, I see myself as, I'm, entrepreneur. I like building things, breaking things sometimes. I like basically manipulating my body into ways that, just in ways we want for longevity, optimal performance, better cognitive function, better immunity, just better mood, better sleep, just living a better life. So I see it as I'm at the forefront of learning how to live a better life through any kind of technology, really. And for me, that's a lot of supplements, typically.
Yeah, I noticed in your bio. Is it 160 supplements a day? Is that number right, Joe?
Yeah.
Salute, brother. I thought I was up there with 40, 50, but
I'm going to tell my wife this when I get home because she likes to joke with our friends. You should see the number of pills Ryan takes in the morning, and I'm like, you have no idea. And I take 12, it's
12.
nothing.
Yeah. I could do a demonstration. This is This is some of my afternoon stack. I don't know. There's probably 15 pills in here.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay. There we go. Yes. On air. This is why you have to watch the YouTube, folks. YouTube channel's blowing up. We're the fastest growing alternative health YouTube channel, according to us.
Second handful.
Oh my gosh. And this is why. You got to watch this. You can't just listen to this. You got to watch the number of pills that Joe is taking. These horse pills would choke the average man, but not Joe Cohen. How many did we just get down 30 pills? It looked like between both those handfuls, Joe.
More than that. Probably more. Yeah.
All right. Now We
That's
just
my
saw
afternoon
how and we saw like the what, like physically.
Yes.
Now you got to tell us what we're taking. What's in the Joe Cohen's stack?
The what and the why.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a lot of stuff. We could go through it.
All right. Maybe hit the high points, like the stuff that our audience, what should everybody be trying or thinking about at the highest level?
Trying or thinking about it?
Yeah. Or like thinking about exploring, like you just took, I don't know how many things, and I'm sure you've built up to that and it's a stack that you trust. But like, if you're trying to give, your top 10 or 15, what they are, why you take them.
Okay. Well, I could go through some of the supplements, and you could see how I think about taking each supplement, like the process that I go through, because I think a lot of people are confused about, you hear about a supplement, but you're like, should I actually take this? I don't know. Right. So, it's helpful for a visual aid, but I'll try to speak so that people who are listening can, understand. So, let's say I'm taking, if you see a check mark here, I'm taking all these things. Okay. And you can ask me why I'm taking each one of them, and I'll tell you. So you see these check marks here? Like, let's say, why am I taking, give me an example. Right?
Can we do a, Joe, just for our audience watching, and I'm watching on a 80-inch screen, and it's still small. Can we blow up the screen just a little? There we go. Oh yeah. This is why you got to watch the YouTube, folks. You can see these on screen in the episode. All right, Joe, keep going.
It's a good list.
All right, so you guys asked me like, why am I taking what? Right.
Yep.
Does anything like stick out here?
Let's start with curcumin. Is it curcumin? Mm-hmm. I've heard of it. I think I know what it is, but that's the first one that might catch attention of, I don't know what that's for.
So I take curcumin. I take 1,000 milligrams a day. Why do I take it? What I did was I put in all of my symptoms and conditions that I had in the past and all my goals. So these are the things I had in the past: food allergies, gut inflammation, low energy, low mood, some tendon inflammation. Okay. And then I have these goals: cognitive function, energy, exercise recovery, focus, immunity, memory, mood, strength. Then we go to my DNA risks, and we could see that actually in my DNA risks, I have risk for food allergies. Some of the things that I mentioned, a lot of the things that I mentioned here, actually, irritable bowel, related to gut inflammation. So you could see a lot of things going on here. There's a lot of, right? There's a lot of information. You can put less information if we want. Like I could take it off of Biohacker mode. It'll put in less information. But the idea is that you could see there's some symptoms, conditions, goals, DNA risks, lab risks. So these are, there's actually 18 lab markers that were suboptimal in the past that curcumin helps with. And then there's some lifestyle risks. This is based on some questionnaires that you can answer, like family history and, were you breastfed as a kid, things like that. So what we see here is that, basically, the way that we normally take supplements right now is you say, oh, I heard you have, gut inflammation. You should take curcumin. It actually is like, when it comes to natural stuff, there's a lot of things that curcumin could do. And the thing is that it does a lot of things in a little bit of a way. So when it comes to like natural supplements, you want to look at something that takes care of many, many different issues together. And that's your DNA risks, your lab risks, your symptoms, conditions, and goals. And you could click on any one of these and see how curcumin helps with food allergies, right? Or basically it'll show you the clinical trials that are related to all these things if you wanted to go down that rabbit hole, or you could just trust the algorithm. So it automatically shows you, like, here's all the reasons why somebody like you might take curcumin. These are all your DNA risks. These are shows I have risk for food sensitivities and food allergies. And a lot of these things I've actually had, or they're genetic. One of my parents have them. And so it's actually, and so if you take all this information combined, you could see a lot of good reasons to take curcumin, right?
Absolutely. What about
and this is,
another one?
and it makes a ton of sense. And Chris, let me just say this for our audience when you jump in. We're looking at selfdecode.com, which is Joe's website and platform, correct, Joe?
Yep.
Okay. Shoot, Chris.
But yeah. So it just,
Go ahead,
the
Joe.
idea is that you don't want to take something for one reason in terms of natural stuff, because there's many, if you see, like, I've had in the past 18 lab markers that curcumin helps with, 29 DNA risks, 5 lifestyle risks, 5 symptoms and conditions, and 7 goals, right? And imagine you're making a decision based on one factor. It seems like, you should go back to the Stone Age, which is how people make health decisions now. And I think that's where people go wrong when they're dealing with, like, their health decisions. They make very simplistic decisions. Whereas your body is very complex. It actually requires software and very intelligent systems to figure out.
I love that.
Yeah. It brings me to this, and I know you do it because it was in your bio. So I'm leading the witness here a little bit, Joe. But how do we know it's working?
Well, you can know it's working by tracking your lab tests. Number one, you see your lab tests getting better.
Yes.
Number two, how you feel. So let's say I mentioned a bunch of things, like some of the issues I had in the past. I don't have any of those issues now. Right. And so that's another thing. Just the fact is, or based on goals or whatever. So how did it help me personally? Like, if I share my screen one more time and I could go through how it helped me personally. Food allergies, it helped a little bit. Gut inflammation, it helped a little bit. Energy, I'm not sure personally, but could be it helped, right? Meaning, like, certain things that, there's obviously some kind of trial here showing that it helps reduce fatigue. But I actually do think that it helped fatigue. Yeah, probably. Mood, it definitely helped. That was something that I noticed more significantly. So sometimes you'll notice more significant effect on one thing or another. The tendon inflammation, I don't know. I don't know if it helped with that. And then there's certain goals. Cognitive function, maybe. Exercise recovery, I don't know. Focus, maybe. Immunity, I don't know. Memory, probably. Mood, definitely. And strength, I don't know. So certain things I don't know because, it's just hard to figure out, like, oh, I improved in exactly these ways. And then there's risks in the future that I know that it helped, that it's helping with. And then in terms of the labs, again, it's hard to know exactly how much it helped with each lab, but I do think it's helping to some degree on some of these labs. And if you look at my labs in general, they are going in, I keep on optimizing more and more labs. So what I'm doing is working as a whole. And then the question is, specifically, can I, and again, I'm also working based on clinical trials. I don't always have to notice a very strong effect for something in order to take it for something, right?
Yeah. There's one condition Chris doesn't like to talk about. I was going to see if there's elephantitis that he's been dealing with.
Yeah.
I didn't see that on your list.
What do I take for that?
Elephantitis?
What is that? We like to have fun here on the show. You can look it up after the show if you don't know what it is.
Is that like a big penis disease or something?
No. The other part.
Maybe curcumin can help that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's like there's this guy, like, if you watch YouTube enough, like giant balls or something. Anyway, it didn't go over well if you didn't know what it was. It would have been better,
I think I got some of the idea.
But in all seriousness, Joe, that's really interesting. I don't know if you've seen anything like that layout, Chris, but that's a very interesting way to be laying out everything that you're taking and lining up everything, because I haven't seen it displayed quite that way.
Yeah, which it's awesome, because having been in this space, the science is there. It's translating the data and information is the difficult part, right? So that your platform is super simple. right? Very explanatory. Hey, these things. Walk us through a patient, right? I go to my doctor. What's the process of me decoding my genes, right? With the SelfDecode program.
Yeah. So, what I recommend is doing a DNA test first, because in terms of bang for your buck, if it's a legitimate test, and most of the tests out there are not legitimate. So just as it's important to note that most of the people selling you a DNA test is not going to be a legit DNA test. It's worth less than the toilet paper that you use, right? Like it really is one of those things that quality is everything. It's just like, it's either worthless or worth a lot. It's not like, difference between a Honda or a Mercedes, or, the difference between something that works like one supplement brand or another. Both of them, you might like, let's say a shitty supplement brand might have 50% of the ingredients. You're like, well, so that, that at least you're still getting 50%, right? The difference here is that could be completely worthless, right? That's kind of like, because it's a complex field, you want to use a lot of data and AI in order to make predictions and decisions. Whereas if you're only looking at, 5 SNPs or whatever. So you have, you guys know 10X Health, right? Yeah. So that's a perfect example of, are you friends with those guys or no? Or you just don't know them?
Yeah, before you bash them, I know Grant. Grant's been on. I have another show that's #1 in business and marketing on Apple. It's called Right About Now. Grant's come on my show. I know Grant. I consider him an acquaintance.
He's a great salesman.
No more, no less.
He's a great salesman. But what the problem is that they're selling a test that for $600 that's worthless, right? And they're giving you 5 genetic variants, and they're claiming, it's gonna, like, this is figure out your MTHFR, and then you could figure out every disease. It doesn't work like that. You got 200 million genetic variants, and just figuring 5 out is not going to do anything. So, they're getting this test for like $20, and they're charging $600. And honestly, just besides the MTHFR, you're not really getting any information. And so what I want to say is that the quality makes a difference. And, unfortunately, like, this is a very good business lesson where you can have the worst product on the market and the best sales, and you still make the most money in the industry, right? They're doing, I think, the best in terms of DNA testing. And it goes to show you that all you need is the best sales. You could have the worst product on the market, and if you have the best sales, that's all that matters, right? So they got a good sales machine going on. But yeah, what the issue with that is the test, besides just knowing MTHFR, which could offer value, it's pretty, like, you'd rather get something that can give you MTHFR plus, so many other things that you could use with your genetic data. Like you're undercutting yourself just by getting just 1 or 5 SNPs or whatever, right? Instead of the 200 million, and really getting sophisticated information from it. So I think that the issue in this space is that people, there's a shittier company coming out every day that's claiming to do DNA analysis, and each one is shittier than the next. And then it's just a question of like, who's the best salespeople, right? Because there is a lot of interest in the space. People feel like, yes, I want personalized, right? The problem is that, unless people understand the difference, which is very hard to educate people, but essentially, the most, what we're doing is building out the infrastructure. What we realize is the marketing game is very hard. You're not going to convince every person. We're not going to have a better sales team than Gary Brecka and Grant Cardone, right? Like, that's not happening. These guys are the king of sales. So our goal is to provide infrastructure. That's what we have already. We do it to 75 companies who want to do precision health. And we have, SelfDecode is like our consumer division, if you will. And that's my vision of how precision health should work, right? And everybody's got their own vision. But my vision is you want to take a whole bunch of data together to make very smart decisions. And unfortunately, like you guys said, you've been in the industry. You haven't ever seen somebody put together all this information and like, we prioritize all the recommendations. And when you click out, what you saw was the click out. You see exactly all the logic and underlying reasons and clinical trials. Where is our thinking when we make when we put a recommendation in a certain spot? And you could see, there's a lot of DNA risks. There's a lot of symptoms, conditions, goals. There's a lot of lab risks, a lot of lifestyle risks. So you could see all the information in one place. And there's certain genetic variants also, the impact and evidence for each one of these, like how curcumin, let's say curcumin's impact on food sensitivities, if it has an impact of 1, that's going to be lower than if it has an impact of 2 or 3 or 5, right? So you need to take into account too many pieces of information. And what I think is, basically the practitioners who don't use this kind of cutting edge software, it's just going to be like, back in the analog days, right? And what I'm finding is that we're pushing up against a lot of dogma. So I have my way of doing it, right? Like, here's how I like to take into account a lot of information. So going back to your question, you said, look, how does a client start with this, right? If you're a clinic or whatever, you want to first do a DNA test, because dollar for dollar, you're getting the most information of any test that you can ever get. You're getting 200 million variants. You're getting your future risks for every condition. You're getting which drugs should you do? Do you have any rare genetic variants that you need to know about?
What do we pay for this, Joe? Let's be specific with our audience.
There's 2 packages, 400 or 600 is basically the full package.
Okay. So
Prices
like more markers?
Yeah. No, it's more, so the way it's more reports essentially. So there's like, you get the medical package that includes pharmacogenomics and what we call the longevity screener, which we include like lifestyle factors into the genetic risk to give you a much more holistic view of what you're really at significant risk for. And then you can download all these reports, right? We have 700 reports on the site. And each report has recommendations. It's got, it's got lab tests to check. So like in this longevity screener, it tells you exactly which lab tests you need to check, which ones are, and if you check them, you can upload them. You can see how it interacts with each of these risks. So we make it simple in the sense that if you don't want to go down rabbit holes, you could just look at, okay, what are my biggest risks? What are my top recommendations? And somebody could look at that.
Joe, I got an idea. You give Chris and I, give us the DNA, and then we come back on another show and you give us, we'll do a readout. We'll do it on air. I'll agree to it. Chris will. I don't mind telling the truth.
Well, let's do it.
That would be a big sell. That would be we could show it live, what it looks like, and we'll put our health where our mouths are and say, here's where we're at.
100%. So I'll show you. I'll show you. Do you want to see Liver King's results?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely.
He allows me to show his results. So that's
and just to be, for everybody that's listening that may not know who that is, who are we talking about here?
Brian Johnson, Liver King.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 Brian Johnsons actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're talking about ultimate biohacker guy spending $1 million a year on his health.
No. That's the other Brian Johnson. This okay. Liver King probably spends $1 million a year on his health, but that's not his branding.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's on like hormones and everything, right? That was the big controversy. He was lying about being on testosterone or didn't admit it or something.
Yeah. That's him. But like, he's actually, believe it or not, he's a really authentic guy.
No, he's like legit.
Him. He's legit. Yeah, he's a great guy. So basically what I do is I'll look at the recommendations. You get somebody's DNA. You you could look at things in different ways, right? What I like to do is I like to look at their recommendation, like their top recommendations. Once they get it, I fill out their questionnaires, and basically, I can add things to an action plan. When I add something to an action plan, it automatically comes up with my basically like my recommendations. So let's say if I say probiotics, we don't want to give a probiotic brand because every practitioner wants their own thing, right? Like you might have your own favorite probiotic brand or your own protocol that you work with as a clinic or whatever. And so you can just put in all the affiliate links here and just give your protocol. So it's like my protocols take 1 capsule twice a day. I mentioned when it's a big difference. If it's like sometimes it doesn't make a difference. NAC is NAC. Doesn't matter what brand you take as long as it's not like rat poison. Right? Like as long as it's like a, legit company. But essentially, then I say like, okay, here's where to get it and whatnot. And so automatically when I add something to the action plan, it gets attached to all of, like all of my notes get attached to it. And so then you could go to the action plan and see like, okay, the morning routine, he's taking supplements now. And you could see all of my notes are attached to these things, dosages. So like, yeah.
Let me ask a question that isn't necessarily my concern, but the voice of the audience here, maybe potentially. Are you a doctor? And what's the line with this stuff of, recommendations and playing a little bit of the fine line of doctor versus biohacker versus, I don't know, specialist?
Well, I'm not a doctor, no. But the idea is that we create software for doctors to use, and then they can, decide what they want to give to their client and make their own protocols, right? We give it as like, here's a software-based recommendations, but then you can decide as a doctor, what do you want to add from that action plan, from the recommendations into an action plan. And then you could download that action plan and it comes up very nicely with like, hey, each recommendation, it gives like a summary. It's like, this is helping with, 10 DNA risks and these symptoms and conditions. And then here's some notes. So the action plan looks really nice. The way I do it is if I have a client, I will make sure they take a DNA test. I'll also make sure they take lab tests. The lab tests I just upload into SelfDecode, and then I build a plan based on, and my notes are already in there. And so I just easily just click on, okay, boom, 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 boom. Let's add these things. It gets into their action plan automatically. We download the action plan. And then it depends on the client, what they want. But like let's say for, it depends on each client. Like if somebody's got like interested in longevity, they want to prevent disease. I'm going to be looking more at their, which, like we're going to be working on the longevity screener and working more from that. If somebody, everybody has like different goals, but I would say that first the way I work with clients is I'll put out a fire. Somebody can't go to sleep. We got to make sure they're going to sleep. So, I'll look at their recommendations, but then I'll add things based a little more leaning towards like the sleep issue or things that I know that, I'm mainly adding the initial recommendations, but I will swerve from that, add some. You could search any recommendation, just add whichever one. So that's kind of what I do. Is the step, my process is in getting optimal is you need data first, right? Without data, you're just going blind. And I tried that approach. Just, I had like 75 plus health issues in the past. Just like not most of them were not major, but so you want to like get all of the, okay, here's all my issues. Here's all my risks. Here's all my labs, like get it all into the system. When that's in the system, you could easily, that's like actually, like getting your labs done, getting all this stuff. Once it's in the system, the recommendation part is pretty easy. And then I'll just add it for a client, and then you can easily download that regimen for the client.
Does any of the
that's kind of my process.
Did any of the recommendations venture into things that might require a prescription, or like the peptide land or things like that?
The recommendations right now don't really have that much prescription drugs or peptides, and that's more for like regulatory reasons. We might do it I think we'll add it for practitioners just so they could, it seems like we're going to add it for practitioners so that you can just add everything to the action plan that you want, so that any peptides you have, it's not going to maybe come up as like number one. First of all, there's no clinical trials on these peptides, almost none. And so for that reason, it would never come up anyway, right? Because we're looking at clinical trials when we rank things. So the peptides are not coming up, but this is where like maybe somebody's experience comes in handy. Like, hey, look, I just have experience when I give this peptide. People do way better. No clinical trials. So we're not going to, at SelfDecode, we can't advise that, right? Even if there were no legal issues, but you can just search for anything and then just be like, hey, yeah, basically you'll be able to add whatever you want. You can do that now. If a practitioner was like, hey, I want to add these peptides, we'll just add it to the system. You can add it, and then you would make notes where to get it, what's the dosage, the protocols. And then when you add it, those notes automatically get into the system. So the way I recommend when I work with clients, there's so much that we could do because we have the data, right? There's kind of like, first we start with the DNA. We start with their symptoms and conditions. We get all those ducks in a row. We get their lab tests done. We upload those. Now we have all this data, right? And so the idea is that, the idea is that we want to, we just create an action plan, and people can also, within these things, that we could also download certain reports so that people could see the risks if they're interested in longevity. Here's what you're most likely to have issues from. If they're interested in taking different medications, like there was a client I had that was taking PPI, just was taking it before I started with her because it's not something I recommend. And she just saw in her pharmacogenomics, actually, she has more likely to get some negative effects from that. So she can look into that more closely, right? So there's different things for different people, right? It's kind of like this really, it's this, that's why I'm saying it's the foundation, because there's so much you could get from it. And it's really just about like, what do you want to get? Like, what is the client? They want to know their diet, nutrition, what's their genetic predispositions for that? Do they want to know fitness topics? So we have like these summary reports on all these different topics. And what we've been doing lately is, like let's say there's a, 10x genetic product, right? What we said is we can recreate each of these and make them 10 or 100 times better. So we just recently made like a 100x methylation report that is like way better than what they have. So we're just actually recreating all these reports from other companies. It's like, and if anyone says like, hey, we like this report from this company, like, oh, no problem, we'll recreate it. It'll take us like 2 days. And, because we built out so much infrastructure that makes it very easy to do that. But the idea is that taking you just through a journey, it's the genetic test. You want to do lab testing. You want to make sure all of your symptoms and conditions are clear so that they're you understand what you're dealing with. A lot of people never even listed all their issues that they have, right? And so they don't know people don't even know. I have clients that don't even know what various issues are called. They don't know that they have allergies. They don't know they have, they're just like, yeah, my nose is stuffed, right? They don't know that it's an allergy. So you want to understand really clearly what's going on. The genetics piece actually tells you which lab test to get as well. So you could also learn from that which lab test to get. You get the lab test, you upload the information, and you just, you add the top 10 recommendations or whatever. And if you're working with a doctor, they can even, have their protocols attached to it or whatever it is. So if you guys did the test, you would connect with me, let's say, and you would get all my notes.
Nice. Chris, any questions for Joe?
How do you guys collect the DNA for the audience listening?
It's a swab.
Oral swab?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, just so people understand, like, what has changed dramatically. Like, I mean, my body composition got better, brain function got better, mood got way better, immune system got way better, energy levels, sleep got way better. Like, and then all of my health issues went away. So every one of them. Recovery got way better. Just like there's so many areas in my life that has improved. And when you were working, and you know, some of the things actually, what's interesting is that some of the things that I've improved, like let's say because I was exercising more, I started getting more injuries. And then I was actually just trying to fix my lab tests. And then when I was basically targeting these lab tests, the issues went away again. Like basically like, there was certain things that I figured out based on the lab tests, certain things I figured out based on the genetics, certain things I figured out just based on symptoms and conditions. But like combining all these things, the technology out there is just incredible. Like we have so many supplements, drugs, to do what we want, to manipulate every lab marker. So I've manipulated 80 lab markers that went from like suboptimal to the optimal range. And, so people are walking around just like not realizing they got a lot of suboptimal labs. They don't know what the hell's going on inside their body. They don't know. And I think it's, there's just so much we could do. There's so much technology, so many things we can do. And that's kind of where I see myself is like, I'm just doing, you know, a whole bunch of shit. And, like for me, I wouldn't say like I particularly eat especially healthy, or my workout routine is especially good, or my circadian rhythm is usually terrible because I'm traveling a lot. Those are like some of the weak points, but even so, I still get great sleep, even with a bad circadian rhythm, which is an accomplishment for me. And and so I rely on supplements and pharmaceuticals sometimes. If the supplements can't do the job. And so like my ApoB levels and LDL cholesterol were genetically high. And I just took it down with drugs. You know? That's
a big topic that our doctor buddy talks about ApoB a lot.
What is he? Does he think
he's a longevity doc? No, he thinks it's a very important marker.
Like most important marker.
Yeah.
It's a very important marker. And if you look at my genetic results, you'll see.
He also is not a big fan of the 10X guys. He does not like their science. Yeah.
Yeah. So ApoB comes up. What's interesting is ApoB comes up as a very high genetic risk for me. And usually they correlate very well with LDL cholesterol. But interesting, my LDL cholesterol at its peak was like 250. And recently it's been like 60.
Wow.
So, but my ApoB at its peak, we're talking about like 140, and it you know went down to like 80. Well, the lowest was like 60. But now, in order to really get it low, some of these things, by the way, like some of these markers came back high, even though I really lowered my lipids.
Yeah.
So now I'm being much more strict with like taking because I actually went through a period where I was taking like only the PCSK9 inhibitor to lower the cholesterol, the lipids, the lipoproteins. And then now I'm taking PCSK9 inhibitor, which is inclisiran. I take one injection every 6 months. And then I take bempedoic acid and ezetimibe. And
are these over-the-counter supplements?
No, those are drugs.
Okay.
So I found that with supplements, I could lower my LDL cholesterol from like 250 to like 120 without any drugs. But then, you know, I wanted to bring it down from 120 to 60. But even more important, you want to bring the ApoB down. And for me, the ApoB is much more resistant because of my genetics. It's much harder to bring ApoB down than it is my LDL cholesterol. Like LDL cholesterol is more like dietary related, whereas the ApoB is much more genetics. Interesting enough, in my genetic reports, it shows my LDL cholesterol is like normal, because it actually is normal if you look at it. Like I wouldn't say I'm particularly high, but it shows my ApoB is very high, like is high risk. And that's actually more accurate than I anticipated, because the LDL cholesterol is normal as long as I'm eating a normal diet. If I eat a low carb, like a high fat diet, it jumps up to 250. But my ApoB doesn't jump up as much as the LDL. Like the ApoB is more resistant to increases and decreases versus the LDL, which could like really massively go up or massively go down. Whereas the ApoB, which is more important than the LDL cholesterol, I see that it's more resistance, but it still goes down if you take enough of these medications. And so I like to get it to like 60. And that's from somebody who has a high genetic predisposition. But yeah, I mean, there's certain markers like the lipoprotein A is a big one. I genetically have higher levels based on my results and based on my blood test too. So you could see how interesting it is that genetics like will tell you all these things, and then you can verify it with a lab test, right? But like the amount of information, probabilistic information that you can get from the genetics, like, hey, you're likely high on these areas. And you could verify with a lab test. So it told me like, hey, look, you're likely high on lipoprotein A, and my lipoprotein A is higher. That is much harder to bring down with any kind of, they have not figured out a way. I tried everything. I've been able to bring it down by 50%, but generally you can't really bring it down by much. But there's actually going to be a drug for that in a year where you can just knock it down completely. So that I think I'm going to take that right when that comes on the market. And then, yeah, I basically do any tool that I can get my hands on, right? Like anything that works, I will do it. And I'll recommend it to clients also. And so, yeah, when I'm working with clients, I go with anything that works. So I'm talking about like, for myself, let's say I'll do some microdosing. I'll do small doses of ketamine sometimes. It depends on what I'm trying to accomplish. But, and then, yeah, so everything, I think there's so many tools that we have available. It's just, yeah, people have to know how to use it to use it correctly. That's really where the problem comes in. And, yeah, so that's kind of, how I work.
Love it. I like it. I mean, it aligns with what we're trying to do with the show. Ultimately, we tend to push the responsibility of our own health on our doctors and other things when it's really our responsibility to take control of our own health. And that's what, hey, SelfDecode. Gotta self being the key word. Joe, where can everybody keep up with what you're doing, learn more about SelfDecode, all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, they could go to the site, selfdecode.com. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so there's going to be pretty good sales coming out, so. But they could also follow me on Instagram, Mr. Biohacker. And yeah, basically, like, I'm just always doing lab testing, trying out new supplements every day. Almost, I would say, like, I've done a mega dosing experiment every day for like the past 15 years. Just like trying a new thing every day. That's my thing. Trying a new supplement, trying a new lab test, trying new things and seeing like what works, what's the most cutting edge. And over time, you just, I've been figuring out so many things. It's like, it's just unbelievable what I've been able to do, over the years that I wouldn't have expected it.
Joe Cohen, the human laboratory for our own gain and our learnings. I love it, Joe. We appreciate you coming on the show, and hey, we should do those DNA tests and do something and, do it live. We'll do it on the show, record and show our results and how you run through it.
Yeah, we could do it 100%.
Yeah. We'll get in touch after the show. Chris, any final thoughts?
Decode yourself, people. Get out there. We're at a time where the information is there. It's at your fingertips. You just need to take the initiative.
That's right. We're here to take you to your highest vibe. We're empowering you to take control of your health. We appreciate Joe Cohen today. You know where to find us, vibescience.com. We'll have links to the show, links to Joe's sites to get your DNA tested and to look at SelfDecode. Again, we appreciate you. We're always here to take you to your highest vibe. We'll see you next time on Vibe Science.
The content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe.